I think whoever drafted this bill did it more for shock purposes, because the reality is that if they really wanted to help the economy here and really prevent from foreign people to come and work, they should have blocked all work visas inside the US, right? They haven't done that.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of Someone You Should Meet. Today, I'm talking with immigration attorney Jacob Sapochnick, who's based in San Diego. Hi, Jacob. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Claire. How are you? Nice to meet you. And thanks for having me here.
No problem at all. Thanks so much for being here. I know you're a very busy guy right now because I'm friends with you on Facebook, and I can see that you're hosting Facebook Live pages and goodness knows what else. So what's the situation like right now for you amid this COVID-19 pandemic?
So I think, what is happening is that every day there's something new that's happening, right? So we are basically get up in the morning and there's a new news release, and so we're trying to stay updated. We have a lot of calls. We're getting about 160 calls a day to the office. Just people are, new people that are calling to get questions answered. And we're trying to, like you said, we have a private Facebook group that we started just to get people in there and answer the questions, and a lot of anxiety, let's put it this way.
So 160 calls a day. What are those calls about?
So people are asking, family members are stuck overseas. Can they come back? Questions about eligibility, what's going to happen with renewals. That they need services. They need to renew their visas. They need, So we have, for example, we have a case where members of a particular embassy are being laid off because there's no services. So a lot of members of that particular embassy, they need help right now transition from a diplomatic status to a tourist status. So a lot of emergencies like this that we get, people stuck at the border, you name it.
And are some countries more affected than others?
So with respect to the ban that we have now, it's not a specific country ban. You've got at least 11 countries that are banned from, even last year. But this particular ban is for certain green card holders, and not green card, people that are applying for a green card and they're overseas. So it's a very limited ban for people that are in the process of getting green cards for 60 days and not going to be able to come. But if you're inside the US, nobody is affected except from the fact that immigration is closed and you cannot have appointments. So everything is being delayed and moved further.
Yeah, that is obviously having a very significant impact on people. Can you share just a few stories of some of the most affected people that you're dealing with right now and the type of situation that they're finding themselves in?
Yeah, so, for example, you've got people that they're stuck in, we have somebody that was supposed to get their green card lottery, and they're supposed to have an interview in beginning of April. And so because the immigration is closed, they're not going to be able to get that interview done until whenever they reopen. And so they're worried that they may lose their eligibility for a DV lottery, which was a miracle that they got in the first place. We've got people that are overseas and they're not able to come back right now because there's no flights, and they may be losing their a particular person that he got a position at a very successful company, and they basically gave him a deadline. If he's not going to be here in the next week or so, the position is gone. They can't wait for him. They need him, and so they're going to have to find somebody else. And this guy was waiting for this job for almost a year now. You know what I mean? So these are all these kind of stories where there's no reason for this to happen, but it just happened because of this COVID-19, and so people are impacted significantly.
Yeah, I can't begin to imagine how frustrating some of those situations must be. But so what's the government doing then right now to help these people who are in basically immigration limbo in lots of cases?
So they are basically doing a few things. So right now, people that are stuck overseas, the embassies issued updates saying that until they reopen, people have to wait, and they're going to prioritize their appointments once they reopen. people that are inside the US, the government said that, for example, if you are on an ESTA from Europe, right? A lot of us, like yourself, um, those people are able to get extensions, they could never get before. So it's very unusual that they can do it, but now they're helping them because of the COVID-19. If you are not able to leave the US, you can file for an emergency extension. So they are definitely doing some things. They're making it easier to reply for certain requests. They give you more time. So we feel that they're definitely kind of working with us and the public, which is good because otherwise it would be very devastating.
What about this suspension of immigrants who represent a risk to the US labour market with regards to COVID-19? What's the situation there right now?
So the whole 60-day ban is aimed at people that are risk to the economy in a way. But if you look at it, the way the ban is structured, it's really specifically targeting people that are applying for the green cards. They're waiting for the green card dates to become current, and they won't be able to do it for 2 more months. So, I think whoever drafted this bill did it more for shock purposes, because the reality is that if they really wanted to help the economy here and really prevent from foreign people to come and work, they should have blocked all work visas inside the US, right? They haven't done that. Trump said that in 30 days he's going to evaluate this thing and maybe do another restriction and expand it. We don't know what it's going to be, but for the moment, the way this ban is done, it's very narrow. So the impact is not very significant, honestly, on people that are overseas trying to get here on a work visas.
So, like when you're hosting these Facebook Live groups that I know that you do, what are you saying to people? What's your advice to people right now?
So what I tell people is, if you're overseas right now, obviously you can go into the US because the embassy is closed, your visa is not open. So I tell people to wait, and as soon as things open, they have to be first in line to try to get their appointments back. If those people are the ones that are affected by this ban, I just tell them to, again, wait the 60 days and then try to reapply. But people that are inside the US, I tell them to, if your case is ready to file, just file it now. Don't wait, because we don't know what's going to happen in a month, in 2 months. Anybody who's ready to file, they should file their cases. And honestly, there's a lot of people that have very specific situations. Like, I mean, especially in the group, I was surprised how many people are worried about delays, are worried about getting their interviews on time. And I just tell them that from my experience, things are going to get delayed, and they just have to be be prepared for when they reopen, because it's going to be a floodgate of things. And if you're not prepared, then you're going to be left behind.
Okay, what sort of wait times do you envisage people are going to have to kind of endure once things do reopen?
So, for example, if you have a marriage-based green card, right? So let's say you had an interview scheduled for April. Once they reopen in June, I think that those interviews are going to be probably scheduled for sometime in September, October. So we're looking at about maybe 2 months, 3 months delay, which is reasonable based on what I see. For new applications, what used to take 6 to 9 months is going to be now a year to a year and a half of wait time. So it's going to be at least 6 months plus delay for a lot of things.
Jacob, how has immigration changed since the Trump administration came into power?
So I think the main change that we see is that there are limited options for us as attorneys to help clients, and also people are getting less flexibility. Let's put it this way. So we definitely see more denials. We see more people being rejected. I mean, just the case from yesterday of the doctor in New York that was denied a green card, and she's helping in the COVID situation. So it's definitely more difficult since he came into power, for sure.
Okay, is there any one policy in particular that you feel has made your job harder?
So one of the policies that he implemented is a policy that you are not going to get a request for more evidence if your case wasn't filed completely in a way. And it's going to be more of a denial thing. And that is something that has been really affecting us because when we try to file a case, before we had more leeway. They would ask, request for evidence, more questions, give us a chance. Right now, that resulted in more denials. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing. For example, definitely the adjudication has become more strict under Trump. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's overall has not been helping us to do our job.
So, when the administration announces a new immigration policy, what's the immediate impact that you see at your office in downtown San Diego?
So you mean the one from last week?
Even the one from last week, yeah. I mean, obviously immigration has been a focus of the Trump administration and will be a key strategy going into the next election too. So because of that, the immigration policies do change frequently. So yeah, I mean, what impact does the frequency of change in policy kind of have on you as an immigration lawyer and the people that you deal with?
So, I mean, I think for us, it's more of trying to make sure we pass the information to the clients correctly, having the ability to advise them properly because things change so fast, and also once things change, being able to answer all the questions because it's overwhelming every day to be able to deal with it. You know what I mean? So it's more of are we able to stay on track as the changes come in? It's so many of them.
Okay. Who are the people that you help, generally speaking? Like, where do they come from, and what do they do?
So we don't focus on one ethnicity, for in a way. So what they are mostly business people that are coming from other countries to start companies here. We also have a division for families, so people that are getting married, bringing their family members, um, things like that, and also the business people that are either coming to start a company or they're here on a work visa, and we can help them and their family members. So we have a lot of Europeans. We deal with a lot of we have a lot of people from Korea and Japan and a lot of Europeans. Of course, we're on the border here, so we have also people from Mexico and Canada because we do a lot of TN visas. But it's a very, very broad mix of people as opposed to one ethnic group.
For sure. Being located so close to the border, what unique kind of challenges do you face as an immigration attorney?
So, for example, being here on the border, you have a lot of issues with clients that are being denied entry, right? So usually they'll call somebody who's in the vicinity, like in San Diego. So we had cases where people are stuck and they send them back to Mexico. So they try to come in and they were stuck in Mexico. They won't let them in. So we have to try to work with the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. We have cases with people that are applying for asylum. I mean, a bit less now, but we used to. Who would come to the border right here in San Isidro, and they would call, somebody like me because I'm in San Diego. So mostly cases like asylum, people that are denied entry, revoked visas at the port of entry. These are a lot of cross-border cases that we deal with here.
What's the situation like on the border right now because of the COVID-19 situation?
So right now the borders are closed except from essential travel. So unless you're going for work, or so between the two countries, there's not really too much movement. It's going to reopen again probably in about a week or so. There's going to be more, but right now it's only essential travel. So U.S. citizens going to Mexico again, they are restricting travel from here to there. So unless we have a family there or something like that. So there's not much movement at the border right now.
Do you know what the situation is across the border right now for people that are waiting to try and get over here?
So right now, people are trying to come here. First of all, you can't process asylums at the border right now. There's definitely longer waits for people that are interested to come here. As far as people that are applying for work visas at the border, they can't do it right now because they're not accepting those at the moment. Um, but and the wait times are very, very long right now, more than 6 hours each way to cross. We have one of our attorneys who lives in Mexico, and then he's there right now. He's not coming here every day, but whenever he needs to come here once a week, 6 hours easily before he can cross.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that story reported many a time on local media here. So you're right, it's the outside counsel in Mexico. Has he given you any kind of insight as to what are the conditions like? You know, what are people living like over there that are kind of in this immigration limbo?
So I think people are accepting the fact that they're going to have to wait a long time. You know, in the beginning, the first 2 weeks of March, the second 2 weeks of March, and then April were much more difficult because there was a lot of uncertainty. But I think now they're just kind of sitting there and getting used to the fact that they're going to be there for a long time. Um, People who are waiting for appointments at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico, there are also no appointments. So, I mean, people are just going to accepting the situation. They're waiting.
Okay, must be very frustrating for them over there. But tell me, why did you get into immigration law in the first place?
Um, so when I moved to the U.S. About 20 years ago, I came here to do law school. So first I was in England. I lived in Manchester for about 4 years, and then I came here
Yes,
to.
you and I don't know whether you remember, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jacob. You and I had a conversation a couple of years back, and we were speaking about Manchester because that's my neck of the woods. I'm from the north of England. And am I right in remembering that you used to go to the pub with one of the Gallagher brothers from
Yeah,
Oasis?
exactly. The
Well, you've got to tell me about that story again.
yeah. So I remember when I was there, it was 1995, and it was the Princess Pub, and I think Liam, that was his like favorite spot over there, which I didn't know who he was back then, but he was a big troublemaker at that bar. And later, the year later, that's the year when Oasis kind of became super famous all over Europe. But I remember that we used to hang out with them at that pub. But I really enjoyed life in the UK. It was pretty, especially Manchester. Manchester was a really good place to be in the 90s. Are you from Manchester too? No, you're close by.
So I'm from Doncaster, but Manchester's not far. In fact, I used to spend a lot of time in Manchester because before I did journalism, I used to model, and my agency was in Manchester. So I was in Manchester a lot. So I love that city.
Oh,
Yeah, it's great. Was the Trafford Centre around when you were there? I want to say that it probably was, that big shopping centre.
It's called Arndale.
Oh, okay. So there's the Arndale. There's also the Trafford Centre, which may have come just slightly after your time. Actually, that was the Trafford Centre is the posh shopping centre there.
No, it came after. But I went back. I was there in 2016, and it's very different than what I remember it. But that's when I started eating it's the first time I ate curry. It was in England.
Oh, that's so funny.
I never had
it
before, and England was because we don't really have it in Israel. Now they do, but back then it wasn't very popular. And since then I became a big fan of Indian food. But
it's so funny because, sorry to interrupt you, Jacob. People think that the UK, our main food is, say, fish and chips. It actually, I think curry is more popular than fish and chips. Outside of India, like the north of England in particular has the best curry. So that's so funny you said that.
The Russian, the curry mile. Remember the curry?
Yeah. What's your favorite curry, Jacob?
Korma.
Korma. What, chicken, beef?
It used to be chicken. Now it's more vegetarian korma.
Okay.
I'm Californian. I'm trying to stay healthy. But yeah, I like chicken and vegetarian korma.
Nice.
And then, but when I finished my studies in England, I was accepted to a law school program here in California in San Diego, and that's the reason why I came here. just to do my master's degree, and then I was going to go back to Europe to work in Brussels. But after living in San Diego for a year and a half, it was very difficult to leave. And so I decided to stay. I got my work visa. So I went through the whole process myself. And that's kind of how I got into immigration. I started working for a law firm, and they did my work visa. And then, next thing you know, I'm here. I stayed here. And I started my practice in 2004. The firm that we have today, I started in 2004. And we focused just on immigration because that's really what I was specializing in. And I liked it because I went through it myself. It was easier for me to relate to my clients, being somebody who actually went through the same process myself. Do you know what I mean?
What would you say is the most stressful part of the whole process? I know for me, it's the kind of waiting and, because it could go either way, even though you think you'll be fine. I thought I was going to be fine. It's just the wait is the most nerve-wracking part in my, certainly my experience. But, what did you find the most kind of difficult part when you were obviously applying to live and work here?
I think for me, it was the uncertainty of what will happen. What's going to happen in the next step. Will I get it? And I think we're trying to make sure that our clients don't go through this experience by trying to keep them updated. But for me, it was really the uncertainty. I didn't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen in 3 months? Will I be able to get the paperwork? Or, you know what I mean? It was just a lot of anxiety because you don't know what's going to be the next step.
Yeah, I hear you. It can be a very stressful process for sure. Talk to me about, obviously you've lived in various different countries and different parts of the world. How did you find Europe compared to the US and compared to your home country of Israel?
I think the biggest difference is that when I lived in the UK, it's more of not a formal society, but I would say it just takes a little bit longer to make friends, to get to know people. But once you do get to know them, they're much more in depth than here. Here, it's especially California, it's a little bit more superficial. People are always like smiling, whatever, but you don't really get to bond and create good friendships until you really find those people. It's very, very kind of on the surface here, and people are very, less deep. That's kind of my impression. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, that's interesting, Jacob. I find the people here extremely friendly, but I do know what you mean. I've made some really nice friends, and I've got a couple of really close friends. But yeah, I can see that maybe people aren't quite as forthcoming, I suppose, as they are back in the UK. Certainly in the north of England.
Right. And so, but I think overall, I feel the life in the US is more. It feels like there's more opportunities because nobody's going to put a stop in your wheels in a way. You can, if you have ideas, if you want to try things, go with it. In Europe, England and Israel are very similar in that way that there's a lot of what I call doubters everywhere. And you're like, oh, do I do this? I'm like, well, it feels like you have to almost fit into a mold. Like you have to go to school. Here you can pretty much do whatever you want, and everybody will not judge you. You know what I mean? So I feel that is kind of like a mentality that I got used to in the past 20 years. And that's the reason why people want to come here, because they feel that, you know what, I can try and do something and nobody's going to judge me.
Yeah, that's kind of sums up really, why I wanted to move here. Since I was, a young girl, I wanted to live in California for those reasons, just because, everyone always, on any kind of footage or programs I used to watch on TV to do with California, obviously the sun's always shining, everyone's always fit and active. And on all the shows I used to watch, there tended to be a news reporter on there. And so I was like, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And yeah, I think you're right. I think people don't judge you here. And, you can dream big without being kind of ridiculed or kind of put into a box. So they are definitely the pluses of living here. So you've obviously lived and seen how immigration works in all of those different countries. What do those countries do right, and what can we kind of like learn from each other?
So I think that, for example, if you look at um, like a country like the UK, I think over there it's their immigration structure is very kind of there's almost like a you can see the plan. So you come as a student, you have to do certain things, and then if you meet certain requirements, you can apply for work. It's more logical, I think. Um, in the US, the system really hasn't changed since the early 90s, if you think about it. And so in many countries, even in Israel, if you think about Israel, which is a whole different immigration system, but that's why I like to use the example of the UK, because the UK is more adapted to what we have here. So the immigration system in the UK is more adapted with time. So if you are a professional, if you are somebody who contributed to the country, you have a better chance to immigrate. In the US, they have those concepts, but they haven't changed in the 90s. And so that's why it's so difficult. For example, if you're an engineer from India and you want to get a green card in the US, you have to wait more than 12 years. And they don't have that in the UK or Australia. So you do have to qualify, obviously, but if you meet the requirements, why would you have to wait so long? You know what I mean? So that is something that the system here, because in the 90s, they needed to limit certain criteria, classes of immigrants, but they never evolved with time. And so that's why our system is so broken in a way. Because some people have to wait so many years. Like look at the Philippines. People from the Philippines who want to immigrate their family members, they have to wait 25 years. And this is unhumane in my mind. So it just, our system is not good at all. And it needs to be fixed. And I think Obama tried to do something. He started the DACA program to help the illegal kids who are here. Um, but I think that Trump he's not really making any efforts to make the system easier.
I mean, those time periods, 10 years, 12 years, 25 years. I mean, how does it possibly take that long to get this process done to the point where people can actually move here? Why is it taking so long?
Because they're limiting the countries. So they have country quotas. They decided the Filipinos, the Mexicans, the Chinese, the Indians are immigrating too much. And so they want to limit how many people can come. But there could be a better way to do it. You can create a system of, if you're educated, if you're this, if you're that, don't just classify them based on where they're from, because a lot of the engineers in Qualcomm who are waiting for green cards for so many years, they're actually going to leave the US because they don't want to wait anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally understandable. So, okay, so from an immigration attorney's point of view, what would you like to see be improved with regards to the immigration process as it currently stands?
So what we want to see is the quota system to be eliminated, or at least made more reasonable. I give an example. Right now, they're going to propose a bill to help nurses and doctors come here faster. And the way they're going to do it, they're going to eliminate the country quota for nurses from those countries. So they can do it if they want to, but they don't. And so we want to see quotas eliminated. We want to see faster processes for some work visas. We want to see more incentives for entrepreneurs to stay in the U.S. And so they're not doing any of that. So I think those are the things that will help more people to be able to come here and stay here.
How do you think this country, or we'll start that one again. How do you think this country is being impacted just by the fact that some people, or so many people, can't emigrate or immigrate here right now? Like, what does that do to this country?
I mean, I think it creates frustration. It creates a lot of resentment for people that are trying to do it the right way. And I think people are just not happy overall with the system. And I think my job as an immigration attorney is definitely very frustrating because my hands are tied in so many ways. You know what I mean? So I think that unless there's a reform, and they've been talking about a reform for, I would say, since 2007, and there's no reform. And we need a reform to be able to start moving forward. And I think maybe that will happen at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Can I just ask, because you're also a parent, aren't you? How old are your kids?
My son is 15. My daughter is 12.
Okay, so mine are 9 and 11 now. So, like, how are you coping with this all of this kind of stay-at-home thing? Like, how are they doing?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, we have to teach them. I mean, we have to um, kind of educate them at home. So typically on Mondays and Tuesdays, I don't come to the office, so I can barely do anything. I have to be online with them doing their programs, and it's definitely challenging. I mean, I feel anybody who's a parent, I mean, you're a parent too, and I can identify with their pain, and it's very hard. How do you do it?
Yeah, well, similar to you, it's difficult. I mean, most days I'm doing this, I'm working, and so I'm having to just kind of leave them to their own devices. They're doing stuff online for school, and intermittently they'll come and ask me questions. But it's difficult. I mean, honestly, Jacob, I don't think anyone, if they're being honest, is totally winning at this right now.
No, I know. I mean, like I said, some days are harder than others, but we have to find always ways to keep them active, and it's been a definite tough 6 weeks for parents. I can tell you that.
For sure, it really has. At least on a positive note, our beaches have just opened in Del Mar, so
And,
we can at least get some exercise and get them to run off some energy there.
so
Um,
the Del Mar open today?
it opened on Monday.
Oh, no,
Yes, yes. So yeah, you
I'll
must
be
get
there
yourself
tomorrow.
back down there. Jacob, I wanted to talk to you briefly about social media because you are very social media savvy. You're very present on social media. Like, how has that impacted or changed the way that immigration works and how the client and customer relationship kind of works these days?
So yeah, I mean, for me, social media has been a very important tool. We use YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We have a very strong presence on TikTok, um, and we just be able to provide information, and clients are calling back. And I think people who are not doing this right now, they're definitely losing. Um, I have a lot of attorneys who complain that they don't have business right now, and I think that it's because they don't do anything to be out there. I think we are very busy right now because we are everywhere. I'm on YouTube, like I said, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and everything is coming together. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess as well. I mean, does it make it so much more accessible? The fact that people can just pick up their smartphone and maybe send you a quick message, as opposed to kind of worrying whether if they call you, you're going to be charging them for your time, etc. Has that almost improved your connectability to your
Yeah.
customers?
I mean, we do a lot of stuff for free, obviously, but I charge people to talk to me one on one. We have an online booking system. We send them a link and they book it. So it's a mix of both. But people understand that if they want a consultation, they have to pay and be able to get the advice from me and from any attorney who's working with them. So I think that it's definitely um, having video consultations like this with clients. I do it all the time, and I think people like that better because then they don't have to drive anywhere, and I can sit down with them and we can have a conversation.
Well, Jacob, listen, you're doing some great work. I mean, I follow you on Facebook, and the Facebook Live groups in particular that you're doing, they're clearly very, very beneficial to a lot of needy people right now. So keep
Sure.
up the good work. Thanks so much for speaking with me. I know you're very busy right now. So my best wishes to your kids and all your staff there. And as I've said, you're doing great work. So thank you, Jacob.